Peter Samuelson has accomplished more than most human beings in their lifetime have, and he aims to share his successes. But more importantly, he wants to make sure people know mistakes were made along the way. Particularly, he wants young people to know that, to help them make better choices and avoid the snafus he's actually experienced. Finding Happy, a user's guide to your life with lessons from mine. Samuelson has produced more than 25 major films and founded 5 major charities. And by the way, he said they're all our children when we were talking before we came on the air. He works with at-risk youth, the homeless, and other populations in need, collaborating with giants like Steven Spielberg. They were the co-founders of the Starbright Foundation. Finding Happy is a joyful book, a joyful approach to living in life, and it's also in many ways a story of Peter himself, who is a great film producer and has given us not only Revenge of the Nerds and Arlington Road, but countless other films. It is our pleasure to welcome him and congratulate him on his multiple adventures and the release of Finding Happy, a user's guide to your life with lessons from mine. Peter, welcome and good morning.
Well, good morning to both of you. And I'm imagining that I'm in the cab of a big old 18-wheel truck driving from somewhere to somewhere and listening to this. So I've spent a lot of my life sitting in big truck cabs next to my Teamster, one or the other of them, on some film going. You're always going somewhere, and trucking is a big part of it. You got the grip truck, you've got the electrical truck, you've got the camera truck, you've got the props truck, you've got the wardrobe truck, and on and on and on. So a big part of making a film is our Teamsters. I love them. I'd like to think I'm an honorary Teamster.
Well, I'm sure the people will speak here and put that stamp of approval on it. And I want to start here, Peter, because I love that with your extensive career in film and all you've done in philanthropy, and being just this master storyteller, and this book now that you've put out. I love the line in it's Finding Happy, but the line that says a user's guide to your life with, here we go, lessons from mine. You're not telling people how to act, how to live, you're not telling them how to find happy. What you're doing is saying, this is my perspective. Now you take what resonates and go hopefully learn a little from it. And especially in Hollywood and in entertainment in general, we get so caught up around age and aging and where does that age me out of whatever. But that's not the case. It's with age is such wisdom and such profound knowledge of how to take those experiences and continue to evolve. So what I want to say here and ask you about is I love that you've now put a book out after all the success you've already had. You've pivoted and been like, now I want to share those experiences. Now I'm going to go write and speak and do all these other things. So I'm curious to you with all your life experience, and what moment when did you kind of have that? Was there an aha moment when you're like, I can take these things and maybe help others by also helping myself by telling my stories and having this real account of your own life? Was there an aha moment, or did this kind of show up more naturally for you as a next step in your career?
Well, yeah, I hear you. I guess there was a series of aha moments, a long aha maybe. About 2 years ago, I realized I have done so much mentoring because of my charity, firststar.org. I've literally mentored one-on-one and one-on-10 and teaching a class and doing it on Zoom and whatever, and all around the country, remotely and face-to-face. I realized I've mentored hundreds and hundreds of teenage foster kids. And I've learned something. I kind of have pattern recognition, we'd call it. So I know what are the touch points. What are they frightened of? What are they worried by? What do they dream of? What do they feel they're up against? Where do they feel no one's listening to them and what their needs are? So I thought I could almost do a list. And so I did my list, and I realized, wow, these are chapter headings. And what I could do is I could write a kind of self-help book, which, let's say you're a dad or you're an uncle and you're away from home, you're driving your truck from A to B, but your thoughts, because, boy, you have a lot of time for thinking. We don't credit our truckers with being deep thinkers, but they actually are, because they have more time to think than the average bear. You're thinking on some young adult, some young person, teenager, early 20s perhaps, who, you're worried. You would like to help them. You want them to dream big. You want them to, make something of themselves and build a happy family of their own eventually, and so on and so forth. I thought I could write this stuff down. The other thing I thought is I have had some pretty peculiar adventures that are either very funny or very sad, very frightening, whatever, in a long career. So I started writing 2 books. I think you have to discipline yourself. That's the other thing that I share with truckers is get up damn early and get on with it. Get on the road. So in my case, I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning, and I made myself write for 1 hour from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m., because that's the time in my life when nobody dares phone me, which is a blessing. And I was writing 2 books. Like I did even-numbered days, I did the self-help book, Finding Happy, and odd-numbered days, I was writing kind of an autobiography. And then at a certain point, I realized I can use the things that have happened to me to illustrate where I got it right, where I got it wrong. So, for example, in the Finding Happy book, if there's a chapter, and there is, it's an important one, the chapter heading is, what is a good risk? What is a bad risk? How can you tell the difference? I realized I've got examples where I got it right. I took the risk, and that was a good thing to do. I took the risk, and I nearly killed myself. I shouldn't have taken that one. Things I didn't do that I wish I had. So I used the autobiographical stuff, call it adventures in the screen trade. And there's a lot of stuff there. I used it to kind of punch up the self-help book, and you could have knocked me over with a feather. I thought I'd have to self-publish it, and the next thing I know, my book agent, he's got a bidding war on his hands, and Simon and Schuster Regalo got it, and God bless, because they're very keen. And I have these hilarious things now where, like, my now adult children, my son Jeffrey, he thought it was just the funniest thing in the world that his dad's book is going into Target. He said to me, "Where do you think they'll put the display, Dad? Where they stack up all the books?" He said, "Do you think it'll be like between the condoms and the plastic spoons?" I said, I think that's exactly its natural place in the universe. It's right there in between those 2 commodities.
Let me kind of bring up something here too, because you could do a biography of your life based on the charities that you have founded. And what I was noticing is they cover different areas of interest, different areas of concern for you, but there does seem to be a unifying factor, and that is mentorship. And one of the things that I was struck by is that you're incredibly curious as a person, and you're an incredible listener as a person. Can you talk a little bit about, because it's a great skill for a producer to have, can you talk about teaching people to be able to listen rather than talk all the time, to be able to kind of take in what everybody around them is saying and to try to figure out the way the world works based on your interactions with others?
Sure, absolutely, because that's one of the life truths. It's in the book, but it's in life generally. When I first came over, you sitting there in your cab, driving from A to B, whoever you may be, I'm sort of imagining I'm sitting next to you. When I first came to America as an immigrant, as a young man, fresh out of college in the UK, I had one mentor in my life, Mr. Lund, and he said, "If you work twice as hard, you can go to a good university." And I said, "No, I can't go to university." But my dad left school at 14. I don't think anyone in my entire family has ever been to college. And he said, "Oh, well, then that'll be even better because you'll be the first one." So I did exactly what he said, and I got my scholarship, and I got a a bachelor's, I got a master's, and then there was no work at all in the UK, in England. I mean, at that time, we were in the middle of a recession. It was just terrible. And there was this one American I had met because I'd worked on a motor racing film, and I'd met this American producer, and that was in my gap year before college. But he remembered me, and he said, do you want to come to America? And I said, how would that work? He said, well, I'll give you a job. We'll get you a visa, we'll give you a job. And I said, would I earn enough to, live somewhere? And he said, yeah, you can, my family, we got a spare room. And I said, and, I'd have to get a car, right? Because LA, you got to drive. He said, yeah, we have a spare car. You can use our spare car. And that was, I guess, the beginning of me realizing that America is, amongst many qualities, it's such a generous country. And the thing about being a listener, the first 2 years, what I did was television commercials. And the great thing about producing television commercials is every 2 weeks you're in a different place. 1 minute you're in Albuquerque and the next minute you're in Chicago. And you do a lot of listening because you have to, as a film producer, the first thing you have to do is kind of get the lay of the land, and you've got to hire a crew, might be 100, 120 people. I always count the plates at lunchtime, Oh, this is a big crew. We have 135 people, whatever it may be. But you have to listen, because how do you hire the right people if you don't listen to what they say when you interview them? And it's always new people, it's a very strange nomadic business. It's a little bit like trucking. It's people meeting for the first time but have to assess each other and then work together. And that's a high skill. And then the charity stuff, what I realized way early is that the toolkit, the big red Sears toolkit of a film producer, what's in it? It's answering these questions. Is this important enough that I'm going to give it 18 months of my life? Who is the crew? Who's going to write it? What's the narrative? How do I pitch this? Where's the money going to come from? Who's distributing it? Where are we making it? What are the locations? And then it goes into distribution. You have to measure it. Was it any good? Should we do another one? Is there a sequel? And so on and so forth. I realized that Sears Roebuck Red toolkit of a film producer, you carry it over into the world of some big social challenge, like what are the challenges that I've tried to address? Seriously ill children are sad. What can we do about that? That resulted with Steven Spielberg in the Starlight Foundation, or firststar.org. Foster kids don't make generally anything of themselves. 6% go on to college, 94% don't. But our kids in First Star, and you might want to ask me, well, how do you do that? We get 89% of them go on to colleges and universities. So it's like a massive success. The third charity, how can we have old ladies sleeping in damp cardboard boxes on a rainy night? What can I do about that? That led to EDAR, EDAR.org.
Everyone deserves a
roof. So it's all listening, because listening is research, and you shouldn't really do anything important until you've researched by listening to people who's already doing what. Is there some margin where we could do more? And how do I apply leadership with my red toolkit from being a producer? What is a producer? Producer is a generalist. We're the head of the army. We aren't an expert in any of the specialties. I don't drive the trucks. God forbid you put me reversing an 18-wheeler, but we know who to hire, and we know how to empower them, and we know how to make them happy and help them find their happiness through working to a common goal. It's exactly the same as starting a nonprofit charity.
I'm going to say a real quick comment here, Peter, and then turn it back over to Lindsay, who has a question for you. Peter Samuelson joins us this morning. I realized something else too about every single one of the charities that you run. Each one is an attempt to rewrite the narrative, to flip 94% to turn it into 89% the other way, to take people who are homeless and deserve to have a roof and give them a roof. That all of what you are doing is looking at a problem and trying to rewrite the script for how it plays itself out. And I find that a remarkable sort of consistency in all of these nonprofits. I know Lindsay's got a question for you.
Well, yeah, no, it's it actually leads into what I'm talking about too, because he's Peter's made a life finding so much joy by both in himself and in others' life, and I think that it's a mix of curiosity and saying yes while also giving back to others. The curiosity and the saying yes, that's what got you to LA in the first place. But it includes also being it includes okay the giving back to others. We have to be okay with finding success for ourselves as well. And I don't personally think the idea of leading a selfless life is beneficial, because it's depleting, and if mom ain't happy, no one's happy. So again, and you walk through this in these personal stories in the book, including like the last one you just told. But to you, Peter, does the formula of curiosity and asking, well, could I, while also helping others, how does that resonate with you, Peter, personally balancing helping others by helping yourself?
Well, you know what? It's in the end, there are 3 chapters in the book Finding Happy that I've written that are called The Meaning of Life Part 1, The Meaning of Life Part 2, and The Meaning of Life Part 3. And what is that in the end? It is that, sure, first put bread on the table, first, get a job, pay for stuff, first find someone to love and to love you back, make your family, and so forth. But the extra layer where joy lives is you have to help other people. And they can be close at home, they can be through a charity, they can be one-on-one, they can be through mentoring. My joy, my happiness is having been able to put my shoulder against the wheel, literally sometimes when the truck was stuck in the mud. But then everybody has to push it out of the mud, because it does take a village to raise a child. And I think where happiness lives is you've got to do some giving back. First thing is, I say to young people, when you work for a charity, and you can do that as a volunteer, you don't have to work there as a job. You could. They employ people. But however you engage in a nonprofit cause, you meet people there who are like-minded. It's how I met my wife. There we were. And why would anybody be there at a charity for seriously ill children unless they had a heart and a soul and a caring? It's common ground. It's the best marriage bureau that ever was. I think what we get from giving is that we find ourselves. I teach a class in firststar.org to the foster kids. So they're usually 10th graders when I get them. And it's called Random Acts of Kindness and Pay It Forward. And it's a whole chapter in the book because it's so important. I say to the kids, you're walking down the street and there's an old lady in rags, fast asleep, lying face down on the sidewalk. What do? Do you wake her up and give her $1? Do you not wake her up but put $1 under her arm so she'll find it? Or do you just keep on walking? And we talk about the golden rule that, in the hearts of most humans, not all, but almost all, is the fact that we don't like it. It doesn't sit well with us when we have the refrigerator and some old lady is sleeping in the cardboard box in which the refrigerator was delivered. What's wrong with this picture? So we talk about the golden rule, which is in every religion in the world, 170 different religions. And then I talk about, in the second class, I say something amazing is going to happen to you. And so I'm sitting there with maybe 30 15-year-olds. And I say, you are each getting, thanks to a very kind donor, Mort, who lives in Dallas, he's going to give each of you $200. And they say, are you kidding us? We're each going to get to, and I say, no, you're not going to get to keep it. You have to give it away. And they have to write a little essay to whom or to what they would like this $200 to go. And we actually do it. And then they have to go back a couple of weeks later and see, was it any good? You know, philanthropy sometimes doesn't work. Did the homeless guy buy the shoes he needed, or did he buy a big old bottle of Ripple? You know, sometimes it goes right, sometimes it goes wrong. But what is transformative is what happens to my 15-year-old foster kids, which is they're all taller by the end of this class, because the process of helping someone less fortunate than you, and every one of us, I'm sure somewhere in this country there is the literally least fortunate person in the whole country. But other than that, the other 350 million of us, there's always someone less fortunate than us, and it's relatively straightforward to find them. You are taller. You are a bigger heart, a bigger soul, a bigger brain when you help them. And that is absolutely true of my foster kids. I just have one of these little essays. I'm adding $10 of my own because that makes 210. And down at the animal shelter, it takes $70 for them not to euthanize a dog. And I'm going to save 3 puppies. And the reason I'm going to do that is the last time I was down there, I looked into the eyes of a puppy that had been very badly beaten. And I saw my own eyes because I was very badly beaten as well. So I'm saving 3 puppies. Love, Jose, you know? It's fantastic. And it's so good for the kids, not to mention the people who get helped externally. It's one of the most important things we do. But it's also the life lesson of my life is, sure, I'm proud of the films. You know, Arlington Road, nothing the matter with that. It was a wonderful experience to make it, working with wonderful people and some big trucks. But actually, what am I most proud of beyond my own kids, that despite all my mistakes, all 4 of them seem to have built wonderful adult lives and given us grandchildren and so forth. Beyond all of that, it's actually 7 charities now, 3 of which are very big. I'm proud of that. I spent all of yesterday at UCLA with our teenage foster kids. There were about 80 of them in the room, and we were connected to the other dozen.
Peter, I'm going to put you on hold for a second here. We're going to talk on the break. Finding Happy, a user's guide to your life with lessons from mine. We're going to get you back on the show. I can't thank you enough for making time. Lindsay and I are both enraptured by what you're saying. We'll be right back.